Hi everyone, it's Abigail from the Creative Bix, and today I'm going to show you how to make this cute symmetrical flower in Procreate that has a little bit of texture and some shading in there. So let's get started. Okay, so to start I have a blank screen size canvas at 2732 pixels by 2048 pixels, 300 dpi. To start off, I'm going to be using my Sadie brush, and I'm going to have that at about, let's say 2%, just big enough so I can see it. And then I'm going to be using my Wildflower Patch palette, and I'm going to pick this medium pink right here, and then we're going to draw a petal. So I like to have my petal kind of tapered at the bottom and a little bit wider at the top. So we're just going to start, and you can always see what you like best, maybe with a little heart shape up there. It doesn't need to be perfect, but I might redo that just until I like it. Yeah, that looks better. And then there we go. So now I'm just gonna color drag and drop that in there so it color fills. And now what we want to do is we're gonna shade it. So I'm gonna add a new layer on top, and then I'm gonna pick the color gray. So we're gonna be using my speckled brush set, and I'm just gonna be using this top speckled brush right here. And I'm gonna show you a few tricks. So immediately when I start drawing, obviously that does not look great. You know, the brush is going outside of the petal and it doesn't blend in well at all. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna change it to a clipping mask. So I have this top layer here, and when I change it to a clipping mask, it's only going to draw on top of where my petal is. It's not going to draw on any pixels that have not been laid down on this previous layer. Okay, and then the other thing, what's nice about a clipping mask is that you can change the blend mode and how this top layer interacts with the bottom layer. So if we change this to linear burn, it gives us some shading, but maybe not the kind of shading we want. So let's do color burn. But obviously this is not the kind of shading we want for our petal, so we're just going to clear this layer. So we're going to tap our layer and tap clear, and then I'm actually going to change our brush. Let's change it to be a little bit finer than the speckled brush, and I think that's going to be good for fine confetti. So we're going to tap fine confetti, and we're just going to start shading our petal. Let's make this side a little bit darker. Okay, so we're just going to shade the side, and if you press hard, it's going to be pretty opaque and dark, but if you press really gently, it's just going to give you a little light shading, and then you can build it up as you go. So I'm going to start kind of light and then see where I need to build it up to make it kind of look more gradient. I have it here, and I think I'm going to make this pretty dark here at the bottom here, and then we're just going to kind of go around the edge and just give it a little bit of depth on the sides. And then here at this little top, I'm going to give it a little bit more shading just to kind of make it look like a widow's peak, and that the petal is it has some dimension there. Okay, so let me give one more little side swipe there, and then we're going to add another layer on top of here, and we are going to change this blend mode to, let's try add and see how that looks. Okay, I like it, but we're going to change the opacity to be, let's see, I'm going to put it at 50% for now, and we're also going to make this a clipping mask, and both of these will be clipped to this petal right here. So let's see how that looks. Yeah, I like that. It's nice and subtle and just adds a little bit of texture to the overall petal and adds a little bit of highlight. And so maybe we can come down just a little bit, give that a nice glow. Okay, so I think our petal's done. So what I'm going to do is I am going to group all of these together, and then I'm going to duplicate this because I want to leave this as my original in case I need it again, and I'm just going to turn that off. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap this group and tap flatten. So I'm only working with one layer now. And so I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. And to do that, I tapped move tool, make sure uniform is turned on so it doesn't get distorted. And we're just going to turn this down and make it a little bit smaller. So I'm going to move this up here. And then what we're going to do is we are going to duplicate that petal. And then we're going to tap this move tool one more time, and we're going to flip it vertically and then flip it horizontally. Okay, so we're going to start rotating this, and you want them all to be going, I mean for me personally, to make it symmetrical the same direction. So right now you just flipped it, you tap the horizontal flip and then flip vertically, and then we're going to tap snapping, and we're going to tap magnetics because I want this to move perfectly down from where it is right now. So with that blue line, I'm going to make sure it doesn't go wonky, and I'm just going to move that down to be right there. So there's a little bit of space. And then we're going to make this a group as well. So we're going to tap group to select those layers. You know, you have your primary layer selected, and then you can always tap or swipe to get your secondary layer, and you make that a group. But anyway, we have our group, and we're going to duplicate this 4 times, actually 3 times, just so we have 4 copies, okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this first group selected. I'm going to tap the move tool, and now we're going to tap rotate 45 degrees, okay? And then over here, we're going to tap our third group, tap the move, and then we're going to tap 45 degrees, the rotation part, twice. So when I have it once, it's matching up with that layer we just moved, and we're going to tap it again so it keeps rotating. And then we're going to do that again with our very last one, and so we're going to tap the rotate 45 degrees 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Okay? And so now this looks pretty nice, but as you can see, the layering is a little bit different. So, you know, some layers are all the way behind, and then we have some overlapping. And what I want to do is I want to make it perfectly around so that there's one side of each petal that's on top and one side of each petal that's below. So to do that, what we're going to do is we are going to open these layers that we have right here, and we're just going to move this bottom layer to be on top of this bottom layer right here. And then we're going to go to the next layer, the next group, and we're going to take the bottom layer from that group and put it on top of the layer we just moved. So now we have 3. And if you're looking over here, you can probably see that changing. Last time we're going to take this layer and we're going to move it on top of the last layer we just moved. And so now they're all going around and they're all perfectly layered on top of each other except for this last one. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take these 3 and I'm going to move them to be within this group as well, just to make it a little bit easier. And that way I can delete the other groups. So I have this group, and let me delete 1, 2, 3. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make use of layer masks. So layer masks help you hide or reveal your layer without erasing, without being destructive. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to this top layer, and we are going to tap it, and we're going to tap mask. So now you have this extra layer here, and the way layer masks work is they work in grayscale. So think of it as like white is going to reveal, it's going to show, and black is going to hide, okay? And then anywhere in between, so gray, it depends on the opacity. So black is completely hiding, and if white is completely revealing, gray will be kind of, you're starting to hide it a little bit, and then the darker you go, the more it's going to hide, the less it's going to show until you get all the way to black. And it's kind of complicated, but the more you practice and the more you try out layer masks, the easier it will be to understand. But right now I want to completely hide this part of this petal that goes over this bottom petal over here. So we have a layer mask on top, and then what we're going to do is we're going to tap this bottom petal. So this is the petal we want, this is what we want to see. So we're going to tap it, and we're going to tap select. So now you can see that this layer is selected, and you can see where these little diagonal marks are, that is where it's not selected. And so we can tell that this whole petal has been selected, and what we're going to do is we're going to fill this layer mask on top of this petal with black. So we're going to tap fill layer, and now you can see that we have successfully hidden that layer right where that petal overlaps. And it kind of looks wonky here, but we're going to add a little middle there to hide all of that. So now that we have that, and I'll show you what it looks like. If I turn this layer mask off, you can see how that looks. And then when I turn it back on, now it's overlapping and all the petals are neatly wrapping around each other. So now we're going to add, I'm going to hide that group, and I'm going to add a new layer on top, and we're going to select this yellow color down here. And then we are going to use the same brush, and we're going to zoom in, and I'm just going to draw the center of the flower. And you can kind of keep building this up to where you need. I like having it so that it's pretty much opaque in the center. You can't really see any of that middle, but then I like having these little speckled areas around it to make it kind of look more realistic. And then we're going to add some shading on top of this, just like we did with our petals. So I'm going to tap a new layer, and then we're going to tap clipping mask. Okay, and same thing, let's go back to gray, because I feel like gray is pretty easy to edit with blend modes. And I think let's put some gray down first, kind of see where we like that, and then what you can do is you can change the blend mode and see what you like. So you could do linear burn. I'm still liking color burn, but I think it might be a little bit too intense, so I'm going to turn that down to 62%. And then we're going to add highlights as well. So we're going to tap another layer, and we're going to tap clipping mask, and then let's change this to add as well, just to give it a little bit of brightness. And now you have the center of your flower. Okay, so last thing is we can see that we have shading on these petals, but the shading is coming from here, and so what we want to do is we also want to add shading where the petals overlap. So right now it doesn't look super realistic in the way that I want it, the way they're overlapping. So we're going to go back to our group of petals, and we're going to add a layer on top of each petal. Okay, now that we have that, we are going to, let's do this top petal first, and we're going to make these clipping masks. So I've set all of the empty layers above each petal to be clipping masks, and what we're going to do is we're going to start adding shading. So I'm going to go over here to the first petal we did, which is at the very bottom, and I'm going to turn down my brush size, let's see, to about 7%. And then I am going to change this blend mode over here because I can't see what I'm doing. I'm going to change it to linear burn for now. We can always mess with that in a minute, but we're just going to gently add some shading. Okay, and that looks pretty good. And I might make it just a little bit deeper down here where it's overlapping, and that looks pretty good. Okay, so then we're gonna go to the next layer, and let's just change these all to linear burn as well, might as well. Just make it a little bit easier, streamline the process. Because I think I like the way that shadow looks. And we're just gonna shade all of these petals. And just make sure your blend mode is on linear burn, or the same one as, each petal. And we're just going to keep going around, tap the new layer, and shade it. Okay, and that is how you make a really cute, easy, symmetrical flower with some shading, clipping masks, layer masks, and blend modes. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this and you recreated, I'd love to see it. Tag me on Instagram at The Creative Bix, and happy creating!